For joining us here at Offside and Out of Bounds. This is our game now.
Hey, while you're here waiting for the video to load, why not drop a like, hit that subscribe button, and turn your post notifications on?
Are you ready?
I'm ready. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Are you guys ready? Let's go! Okay, Junior, welcome. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here at Offside and Out of Bounds. We want to thank you for joining us for the NHL Round 2 preview. Couple games to wrap up, but we're going to talk about that in the preview. I'm Adam, and as always, I'm joined with Junior. So, Junior, are you ready?
Let's go!
All right. So, we see a little quick snapshot here of some of the teams that are lost but not forgotten.
In memoriam.
Two more teams to kind of put the X on their back. So let's take a look at the agenda here for today and get cracking. Oh, first we're going to start off with our picks from the last round. Okay, yes. Junior, you want to take this for us?
Sure. So the two games we're waiting on, of course, are the Vegas Golden Knights and Toronto Maple Leafs. Vegas is in Game 7 tonight at 9:30 p.m., so we're still waiting on the result there. If all things go as planned, Vegas should be coming out of this relatively unscathed. The Leafs, on the other hand, as we are in Leafland, always worried about coughing up 3-1 leads. Leafs issues, they've got the foot on the throat, and they just can't snap the neck as usual. But the good thing is they got a couple more shots at it. So Saturday night, they are in Montreal for Game 6. There will be fans in the stands, so that's great for the habitants. We hope that it just gets closed out, then we don't have to talk about this anymore. So, who is going through? You had Tampa, I had Florida. So,
yeah.
You got the check mark, I got the X. Avs swept, so that's a big plus there. You had the Caps, unfortunately, they lost. Canes won, Oilers got destroyed, and the Penguins just didn't show up. So, after the almost conclusion of the first round, you're sitting at 3-3 with those two games to come. So you could finish 4-4 or 5-3. And I'm sitting at 4-2. I had that upset of the Jets and Bruins. And if everything goes as planned, I could be 6-2. So not too shabby after the first round for either of us.
Yeah, looking pretty good. Definitely some interesting first round hockey. Definitely some unexpected twists and turns, and I expect the second round to be just as exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of, let's take a look at the second round. So we got Boston here matching up against the New York Islanders. Islanders, kind of, I wouldn't say that they really won that series in so much that Pittsburgh lost that series.
I would disagree. Sorokin just absolutely stoned them. When Sorokin wasn't in net, they lost both those games. So the Islanders, they handed Pittsburgh that 4-2 series loss, and I didn't see a lot of jump coming out of Pittsburgh. So let's kind of start with Boston. So they beat Washington 4-1. There were 3 games that went to OT, so it was a close series. Charlie McCovey, 5 assists, Marchand 3 goals, and Rask was formed on with a .941 save percentage and a sub-2 goals against. So Washington had a pretty stellar power play, but Boston limited it to 3 for 21, which is roughly around 14%.
Yep.
And Washington had the third best power play all year long. That was humming at 24.8%. So that's a huge drop.
Yeah.
They also took that 5th scoring offense of Washington and limited it to 10 goals in a 5-game series. Again, that nuclear line, Bergeron, Marchand, and Pasternak just dominated that series. Rask, again, was on his head. And it's a funny storyline coming out of Boston, but Charlie McCovey is turning into potentially like a really strong number 1 defenseman there in Boston. But for me, it's going to be that nuclear line. They're most likely going to be tossed in against any line that the Islanders have that's going hot. Yeah. Because those 3 guys, when they come on, they're going to shut you down. They're going to clog up the zone. They are going to punish you up against the boards. And they can score too in bursts and tons of them. So, if they can shut down things and score, it's gonna be some trouble for the Islanders because those guys log big minutes too.
Yeah.
To move over to the Islanders, so they beat Pittsburgh 4-2. They definitely outchanced them, and they kind of rode a really hot second line. But that first line, centered by Barzal, it needs to be better, or this series is just going to be over really quickly. Pajot has been pretty solid on that third line, and he loves playing Boston. So he had 8 points in the regular season against them, 5 goals, 3 assists. And with Pajot's Boston passion, it's going to, hopefully it spills over to Palmieri to kind of get him out of that funk. Because since he moved over at the deadline from Jersey, he's done absolutely nothing. And then again, Barzal had an absolutely horrible first round with 3 points, all 3 assists. So, it's going to be an interesting series, but, the Bruins are going to most likely just control that stat sheet. Shots for, shots against, hits, takeaways. The Isles are going to get their power play chances. But what they do with them is going to determine how long this series goes. So if I were looking at scoring edge, I got to give that to Boston. Playmaking edge, I got to give that to Boston. Special teams edge, I got to give that to Boston. Goaltending edge, I got to give that to Boston. The series, I got to give that to Boston. And I would kind of venture a guess and say this is going to be another 5-game series for Boston.
Wow, 5 games. Yeah, I mean, these guys are, potentially a strong pair of defensive juggernauts, at least on the surface. I expect this to be a pretty tense series. Boston has been the hottest team in the last month or so, and I think they're definitely going to take this series 5 games 4-1. I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see on that.
It's definitely got that makeup to be one of those old school series that lots of nice open hits and some nice passing and just grind them out games. So
yeah, I think it's a fun one to watch.
Yeah, it's going to be a nice divisional final here for the Mass Mutual East.
Awesome. Okay, let's move over to Winnipeg, who just absolutely annihilated Edmonton. I mean, demoralized that team beyond maybe repair. I don't know. That team. Dude, that team is just an interesting team.
They beat them so bad that Gretz left.
Yeah,
they might take a job with Turner Sports.
It's
even he didn't want to be affiliated with the team anymore.
That team has caused a lot of pain for a lot of people.
Yeah,
and then we're looking at the winner of which we're hoping the Leafs can close out in Game 6 tomorrow night against the Habs. As you mentioned, there will be some attendance in there. I think 2,500 plus.
Yeah.
So how do you see? I think we're assuming that the Leafs are going to be able to close that out and face the Jets. How do you think that matchup looks?
Well, if I'm Winnipeg, I would like to probably see Montreal come through. But sorry, Habs fans, it's not going to happen. I'm doing the Mark Messier right now, and I'm guaranteeing a win here. It's going to happen. So for the Winnipeg Jets, they fared okay against the Leafs this year. They got outscored, and obviously they only won 4 out of 10. But the good saving grace here is that Hellebuck is standing on his head. Guy's got a .950 save percentage and a goals against a little bit over 1.5. And he just came off a series where he saw Draisaitl and McDavid, who were the leading scorers in the NHL. So, he's been battle tested to this point. So the only thing that they'd have to look at is matching that intensity and speed and playmaking with Toronto. You're going to look at Scheifele probably trying to handle and shut down Matthews, but there's been some pretty hot hands, and the offense has been pretty.
There's other options, right?
So, and that's why they're built the way they are. And I would need to see the Leafs power play up and running a bit better. It hasn't been to where it needs to be. So, with that, again, it's going to be another one of those old 1980 Norris division matchups, and I can see that being a really entertaining series. But we need to get there first.
Yeah, it's great to see a couple Canadian teams going at it here in this division. I sure hope the Leafs can pull it out. Tavares was skating this week. Would you expect him probably not to be available in this series?
No, I think it would be you need a genie in a bottle to get him into this series.
Okay.
I think if he comes back, it's for the the semis, which would be the series after this.
Yeah.
And even then, he's probably halfway through the series. So, I mean, hey, if you're still playing then, and you have the ability to add a Tavares back into the lineup at that point, who's going to be rested to an extent, I think is a huge bonus, and that teams are going to have to plan for too. So
yeah, absolutely.
And obviously they're way more dynamic with Tavares in there.
Okay, let's take a look at the other side here. So Carolina versus Tampa Bay. Let me pull Matthews down here. Carolina's been trolling.
They
I'm
have.
sure you've seen this. The Predators, they put out a couple of tweets to the point where basically they pushed the Predators to block them on Twitter.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on that after beating them? A little bit unsportsmanlike for me.
It's kind of what I expect from them.
Okay.
They haven't shied away from trolling people. I mean, they had a bit of a battle with Grapes a few years ago.
Yeah.
They didn't really agree with some of the things that he had said about them, so they made T-shirts. This is a young team. Aho is that superstar there. Outside of that, it's a bunch of lunch pail guys that are young, have high energy, high motors.
Yep.
They love to play. And the funny thing is that these two teams are so evenly matched. Like, you literally split it right down the middle.
Yeah.
I think the Canes kind of played with their food a little bit. I didn't see Nashville lasting as long as they did. Especially after the regular season domination they had over them.
Yeah.
The Lightning, they're healthy now, and they're way more dynamic than they were in the beginning of the playoffs.
Kucherov also didn't play any of those 8 games that they played during the regular season.
No, and he is leading the team in points in the playoffs with 11. So
11 points, and 7 of those coming on the power play.
Yeah. So, I mean, his addition was sorely needed for them.
Yeah.
And I think, he definitely was one of the bigger difference makers in that game. So, when you look at this, it's literally flip a coin.
Yeah. I think the odds on this are like 110 to minus 110. They're in favor of Tampa Bay, but I see a lot of people looking at the Canes here.
If there was value on the Canes, I'd probably jump heavy on them. But
yeah,
they're both
right there.
4 wins. They both had 17 goals head to head. I think the defense has been stout for both of them. The scoring has been good for both of them. I just think that Tampa's got a lot of talent there.
Tons. And they're very, very strong on the power play, scoring 8 goals in 20 power plays.
That's
you're their
talking
bread and butter.
Yeah, it's like almost a 50% clip in the playoffs, which is insane. So with this, literally, like I said, flip a coin. That's how close this is going to be. I wouldn't be surprised if this went 7 or someone got swept. Like, that's how crazy it is.
Yeah, it's possible. I think this is looking to be probably the most exciting series. I think there's going to be a lot of offense in here as well. Okay, let's move on here to the last matchup. So that's the Avs and hopefully, I think, the Golden Knights there, Vegas. But Minnesota also has a chance. Obviously, it's a Game 7 matchup.
Anything can happen in Game 7.
What do you think about these guys matching up? Avs obviously just dismantled St. Louis. I mean, there was no issue at all. It was a very
and they lost the player
machine. Yeah,
and we were reminded that by a viewer that we were too quick to not talk about the fact that the Avalanche won the President's Trophy this year. Ran away with it. This is a good team.
Yeah.
Like, no one said they weren't. That's hindsight. But they won a lot this year, and they are just rolling. And there's tons of talent, and they've got 3 lines that are just juggernauting right now.
Yep.
The back end is really strong. I mean, they gave up 7 goals in the first round in a sweep against St. Louis, who is not a garbage team at all. I mean, they didn't have the greatest record, and the season wasn't the greatest for them. So they were pretty much a sacrificial lamb to Colorado. But hey, they did what they had to do, and they swept them.
Yep.
McKinnon leading the way with 9, Landeskog right behind him. Grubauer's perfect so far with a .941 save. And then, funny enough, to see Brandon Saad leading the team in goals. So it kind of shows you that their attack has been very balanced, and they're sharing the puck very well. So, I mean, who would you want to see? Do you want to see the Knights move through and just have an epic battle? Or do you want the Wild to move through where you potentially could get another sweep? Not saying the Wild would get swept, but
yeah,
that's kind of how the pads are stacked, right? So
I'd like to see Vegas go through. I think the matchup is probably a little bit more exciting long term. Probably get a few more games out of it. I'm not a big fan of series ending early and then kind of starting early in the following round. I like to keep the fans, keep the players. I don't like rest turning to rust. You got to keep it all fluid.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd prefer to see because I think that would probably get a little bit more serious. Again, Minnesota probably wouldn't get swept, but it might be close.
Yeah. And so, I mean, for the Knights to win tonight, game time is in 19 minutes. I think it's going to be Marc-Andre Fleury. He's got to stand on his head, and he's got to shut the door, and he's going to be the guy that drives everything. So I think if Fleury's on, it's an easy Knights win. If he's not, then we're looking at Minnesota coming back and moving through.
Could still be exciting. You never know. Get hot at the right time. Anything can happen, right?
That's playoffs.
Okay, let's take a look at the picks then here. Okay, so I'll go first. Boston and the Islanders. I'm going to go Boston. I just think that they made too many moves at the trade deadline. This team is very well equipped to go deep in the playoffs. Would they be matching up against the winner of Winnipeg-Toronto?
No.
Okay, thank God. Because if I was Toronto, I wouldn't want to be playing them.
Yeah, if the Leafs win, they'll be facing the Avs or Knights or Wild.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to take Boston. What about you?
You're taking Boston now. You didn't take them in the first round against Washington.
Oh, they're different now. I thought Washington was going to be better. I'm not a big fan of the Islanders. I mean, I just don't know. I mean, them upsetting the Penguins, sure, but I don't think that's the team for me.
Yeah, for me, I think there's too many unanswered questions with the Islanders. And ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas, to quote the great Bob McCown. Yeah. And I just think that nuclear line is just going to be too much for the Islanders to handle, especially considering they're in a log minutes and they're gonna smash and crash every line that's moving on the Islanders. So yeah, give me Boston.
Okay, who do you got in the second in that next matchup with Winnipeg Toronto?
I'll take the Leafs. I think that the playmaking and the skill set is just it might be closer than it is with Montreal, but I still think there's a good distance between the two teams. So
yeah, this is a bit of to be honest, it's a bit of a toss-up for me. I don't know. Winnipeg was able to do a lot against Edmonton.
Granted, but what did I tell you all they had to do?
Shut down Connor, right?
That's it. That's all you need to do.
And the Leafs just have so many more weapons.
Way more options.
I think their lines are just much deeper.
Yeah.
Give me the Leafs, but I think that series is going to go 7 if the Leafs get through to that. I think
it'll go a distance for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Canes Lightning. I'll go first.
Okay.
I like the Lightning in the first round against Florida. And I think they have a lot of scoring with Kucherov back and his playmaking, and they're extremely good on the power play. But again, this is a toss-up series. I'm gonna go with the Lightning. I think this is gonna be a deep series, though.
Okay. Here's a quarter.
Yeah. Okay.
Tails. That's heads. Carolina is tails. Tampa's heads.
All right.
It's heads. Tampa Bay.
All right.
That's literally how close it is. Like,
yeah, I know it's gonna be a really good series. I think it might come down to those power plays and how many penalty minutes these teams get because they're just red hot in the power play. And then we got Avs versus Vegas. You go first.
Oh, jeez. Same coin. Avs are heads. Vegas is tails.
All right.
It's tails. Vegas.
And I think I had the Avs. I think I said in our original preview that the Knights were going to sweep, if I'm not mistaken. And
you did.
The tables have turned now for me a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take the Avs in this. I think maybe they're going to do something in this playoffs that people aren't expecting, and I think they might be poised for a deeper run than anybody might have thought. So I'm going to go with the Avs.
Yeah, remember, second round, you get a hot goalie, you're done. And
this is the thing, right?
Yeah.
If a goalie decides, hey, I'm not going to let any more goals in, that series is over. It doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah, and you have to look at the goalies that are in right now. So you've got Tuukka in Boston, and he's shown that
we know what he's
can get
capable
hot
of doing. Yeah,
and he can roll right to the cup.
Yeah, no problem.
Hellebuck can get hot. We're still seeing Jack Campbell. I mean, he's been playing out of his mind. You got Vasilevsky in Tampa, and they rode him last year, and then in the series between Vegas and Colorado, you've got Marc-Andre Fleury, and he's shown year after year
we know what he's capable of,
what he can do.
Yeah.
So it just comes to Grabauer in terms of what he can do to kind of match save for save. And, with Vegas, they can grind you out. This is a team who was almost undefeated at home. So I think that's going to be a really good series. And I think it was more this first round that, it's a case of Vegas kind of playing with their food, trying to juggle lines and figure things out before they get on the healthy long run. So
better to do it in the first round.
Exactly.
These are interesting matchups, though. I don't know a lot of people would have had this if they were putting a bracket together. This is an interesting second round already.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even at the beginning, we had said that it was Leafs Vegas.
Yeah.
But if it ends up like that, that'll be the semifinal to go to the Cup.
That's right. And
then they would play the winner of Boston Tampa. So if everything goes as we think it's going to go,
could see a Boston Toronto final,
which I would not enjoy at all,
unless they won.
Unless they won, yes, of course.
We'd have to pull you off. We'd have to pull you off like the respiratory machine after a few heart attacks. But
it would be another case of us going up 3-1 and losing in overtime in the 7th game.
I don't want to talk about that, man.
Yeah. Leafland, love you.
Yeah. All right. So that's a wrap for us. Thank you for joining us for the NHL Round 2 preview. We're hoping those predictions for those last couple of games come through and go Leafs go, of course. As always, I am Adam.
I'm Junior.
See you
real soon.